Hello everyone, welcome back to Life Single Channel. This is Ly Tu Huyen, and we are so grateful you are here with us today. In our last episode, we witnessed a frightening moment when Dee was rushed to the hospital with dengue fever. Today, we continue that journey with a question. What does it truly mean to love someone unconditionally? When someone has given you everything, how do you show them they deserve the same care in return? Day has passed through the most critical stage and has been moved to the recovery ward. But now, Huyen faces a choice. Return home to be with Maya, or stay by Day's side. Sometimes the deepest expressions of love are found not in grand gestures, but in simple acts of presence. Join us as we explore what it means to reverse roles and become the caregiver for someone who has always been your protector. Please like and subscribe to follow this touching journey. Huyen left the hospital with a lighter heart than when she had arrived. The doctor's words still echoed in her mind. Dee would recover. It would take time, but he would be okay. That knowledge gave her strength as she made her way back through the winding mountain roads toward home. The landscape looked different in daylight. What had seemed eerie and threatening in the morning mist now appeared beautiful and hopeful. The green mountains rose majestically around her, terraced fields carved into their slopes like steps to heaven. This was the land Dee worked so hard to cultivate, the land that had nearly cost him his life. As the vehicle climbed higher, Huyen's mind raced with plans. She needed to arrange care for Maya. She needed to pack supplies to stay at the hospital. She needed to prepare food that would help Dee regain his strength. The list grew longer with each passing mile, but she did not feel overwhelmed. Instead, she felt purpose. For so long, she had been the one receiving care. Day had rebuilt her life, given her and Maya a home, restored her dignity and hope. Now, finally, she had the chance to give something back. Not because she owed him, but because she loved him. Because he deserved to be cared for just as tenderly as he had cared for them. The vehicle pulled up outside their small house, and immediately Maya came running out. "Mama!" The little girl threw herself into Huyen's arms with such force that they both nearly fell over. Huyen held her daughter tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair, feeling the small body pressed against hers. How she had missed this, even in just these few hours away. "Is Papa Day okay?" Maya asked, pulling back to look at her mother's face with worried eyes. Huyen smiled, cupping her daughter's cheek. "Yes, my love. Papa Day is getting better. The doctors are taking good care of him." They went inside together, hand in hand. The house felt empty without Dee's presence. Usually, by this time of day, he would be preparing lunch, humming softly as he worked. The silence was heavy and strange. Huyen pushed aside the sadness and focused on what needed to be done. She sat Maya down at the small table and explained the situation as simply as she could. "Papa Day needs to stay in the hospital for a few days so the doctors can make sure he gets completely better. Mama needs to stay with him to help take care of him. You will stay here with Grandmother Lan from next door. Is that okay?" Maya's lower lip trembled. She was only 3 years old, too young to fully understand illness and hospitals, but old enough to know that something serious had happened. "I want to see Papa Day," she said in a small voice. Huyen felt her heart break a little. "I know, sweetheart, and you will see him very soon. But right now, the hospital is not a good place for little girls. Too many sick people. Papa Day would not want you to be somewhere you might get sick too." She pulled Maya onto her lap. "But I will call you every single day and tell you how Papa Day is doing. And I will give him all your hugs and kisses. Deal?" Maya nodded slowly, then suddenly brightened. "Mama, wait!" She scrambled off Huyen's lap and ran to the corner, where her few toys and papers were kept. She grabbed a piece of paper and some crayons. and set to work with intense concentration. Huyen watched, curious and touched. After several minutes, Maya held up her creation proudly. It was a drawing of 3 stick figures holding hands, a larger one in the middle, and 2 smaller ones on either side. Above them, she had drawn a bright yellow sun and something that might have been flowers or stars. "For Papa Day," Maya announced. "So he knows we love him." Tears sprang to Huyen's eyes. She took the drawing carefully, as if it were made of glass. "This is beautiful, Maya. Papa Day will love it so much. Thank you for making this." She hugged her daughter again, overwhelmed by the child's pure, simple love. At 3 years old, Maya could not cook or clean or earn money, but she knew how to love, and that was the most valuable gift of all. "I will put this right next to Papa Day's bed, so he can see it all the time," Huyen promised. Grandmother Lan arrived shortly after, summoned by Huyen's earlier message. She was an elderly woman who lived alone since her husband had passed, and her children had moved to the city. She had always been kind to Huyen and Day, treating them like the family she no longer had nearby. When Huyen explained the situation, Grandmother Lan immediately agreed to watch Maya. "Do not worry about anything here," she said, patting Huyen's hand. "I raised 5 children of my own. 1 more little one will be no trouble at all. You go take care of that good man of yours. He needs you now." Huyen worked quickly, moving through the house with efficient purpose. She packed a bag with clean clothes for both herself and Day. She gathered the toiletries he would need. She prepared food that would keep well. Rice wrapped in banana leaves, pickled vegetables, boiled eggs, fruit. She rolled up a thin blanket and tied it to the outside of the bag. She filled a water bottle and added it to the collection. Each item she packed was chosen with care, thinking about what would bring discomfort or help him heal. As she worked, Maya followed her around like a small shadow. "Mama, tell Papa Day I will be good. Mama, tell Papa Day I miss him. Mama, tell Papa Day to come home soon." Each message was delivered with solemn importance, and Huyen promised faithfully to relay them all. Finally, everything was ready. Huyen knelt down to Maya's level one last time. "I love you so much," she said, holding her daughter's face between her hands. "Be good for Grandmother Lan. Listen to what she says. And remember, even when Mama is not here, I am always thinking about you." Maya nodded, trying to be brave even as tears filled her eyes. "I love you too, Mama. And I love Papa Day." They hugged tightly, and then Huyen forced herself to stand and walk toward the door. Looking back would only make it harder. Grandmother Lan had her arm around Maya's shoulders, holding the little girl securely. Huyen waved, shouldered her bag, and left before her resolve could weaken. The walk back down the mountain path to catch transport felt longer than usual, weighed down by both the physical burden of her bag and the emotional weight of leaving her daughter behind. But she knew this was necessary. Day had sacrificed for them so many times. Now it was her turn to sacrifice for him. The hospital felt more familiar the second time Huyen entered it. She navigated the corridors with more confidence, finding her way to the recovery ward, where Day had been moved. This area was quieter than the emergency ward, less frantic and frightening. Patients here were past immediate danger and focused on healing. When Huyen pushed open the door to Day's room, her breath caught. He was sitting up slightly in bed, propped against pillows, looking out the window. Hearing the door, he turned his head, and his whole face lit up when he saw her. "Huyen," he said, his voice still weak but much stronger than it had been that morning. "You came back." There was surprise in his tone, as if he had not quite believed she would return. Huyen crossed the room quickly and set her bag down. "Of course I came back. Did you think I would leave you here alone?" She smiled and took his hand, relieved to find it cooler than before. fever finally broken. Day looked better in every way. The terrible grayness had left his skin. His eyes, though tired, were clear and focused. The monitors beside his bed beeped steadily, showing vital signs that were moving in the right direction. "How is Maya?" Day asked immediately. That was so like him, Huyen thought. Sick and weak in a hospital bed, and still his first concern was for others. "She is fine," Huyen assured him. "Staying with Grandmother Lan. She misses you terribly." She reached into her bag and pulled out the drawing Maya had made. "She wanted you to have this." Day took the paper carefully, staring at the 3 stick figures holding hands. His eyes grew suspiciously bright. "She drew this for me?" His voice cracked slightly. Huyen nodded, her own throat tight with emotion. "She wanted to make sure you know we love you." Dee studied the drawing for a long moment, tracing the figures with one finger. "I will keep this forever," he finally said. Huyen helped him tape it to the wall beside his bed, where he could see it easily. Then she got to work. She had brought dinner, simple but nutritious food that would be easier on Dee's recovering system than hospital meals. She unpacked the containers, setting them out carefully. Day protested that he could feed himself, but when he tried to hold the chopsticks, his hand shook with weakness. Huyen gently took them from him. "Let me help," she said softly, and so she fed him, one small bite at a time. It was intimate in a way that made them both a little shy. Day had fed Maya countless times, but being fed himself felt vulnerable and strange. Yet there was something tender about it too. Huyen was patient, never rushing, making sure each mouthful was comfortable. She wiped his mouth gently when a grain of rice stuck to his lip. She held the water cup steady while he drank. These were small acts, simple gestures, but they carried the weight of deep devotion. Day watched her face as she concentrated on taking care of him, and something in his chest felt too large for his body. How had he gotten so lucky? How had this woman and her child come into his life and filled it with so much meaning? After dinner, Huyen cleaned up and then settled into the chair beside Dee's bed. She had brought a book, one of the few they owned, and she began to read aloud. Her voice was soothing, rising and falling with the rhythm of the story. Day closed his eyes, not sleeping but simply listening, letting her words wash over him like a gentle stream. He could not remember the last time someone had read to him. Maybe when he was a small child, before life had gotten hard, and there was no more time for such luxuries. Now, lying in this hospital bed, he felt cared for in a way that went beyond physical needs. Huyen was tending to his spirit as much as his body. The afternoon drifted into evening. A nurse came to check Dee's vital signs and change his IV bag. She smiled at Huyen. "You are doing a wonderful job taking care of him. His recovery is progressing very well." The words made Huyen glow with quiet pride. She was doing something right. She was being useful, being needed in a way that felt good and purposeful. When the nurse left, Huyen asked Day if there was anything else he needed. He shook his head. "Just having you here is enough." As darkness fell outside the window, Huyen began preparing for the night. She pulled out the thin blanket she had brought and started arranging the chair to sleep in. Day immediately protested. "Huyen, you should go home. You cannot sleep in that chair. It will be terrible for your back." Huyen looked at him with determination in her eyes. "I am staying, Day. You stayed by my side when I had nowhere else to go. Now I stay by yours." Day tried again. "But Maya needs you, and you will be so uncomfortable here." Huyen moved closer to the bed and took his hand firmly. "Maya is safe with Grandmother Lan, and I called her before dinner. She is fine, Day. She wants me to stay with you, to make sure you get better." She sat on the edge of the bed, still holding his hand. "Do you remember what you told me when you first brought us into your home? You said family means being there for each other, especially when things are hard. You have been there for me and Maya through every difficult moment. Now please, let me be here for you. Let me be your family the way you have been ours. Day looked at her face, so earnest and determined, and knew he could not argue anymore. The truth was, he did not want her to leave. Having her nearby made him feel safe and loved in a way that had nothing to do with medical care. "Okay," he said quietly. "Thank you, Huyen, for everything." She smiled, a beautiful warm smile that lit up her whole face. "There is nothing to thank me for. This is what love looks like." She squeezed his hand once more, then returned to arranging her makeshift bed. The hospital grew quiet as visiting hours ended and patients settled for the night. Day lay in his bed watching Huyen try to get comfortable in the chair. She curled up on her side, pulled the blanket over herself and closed her eyes. The chair was clearly not made for sleeping. It was too narrow, too hard, positioned at an awkward angle. But Huyen did not complain. She simply adjusted her position a few times, seeking the least uncomfortable arrangement, and then went still, willing herself to rest. Day felt his heartache watching her. She was choosing this discomfort, choosing to stay in this sterile hospital room instead of in her own bed at home. All for him. The night deepened. The hallway outside grew quiet except for the occasional soft footsteps of nurses making their rounds. Day could not sleep. His body was exhausted from fighting illness, but his mind was wide awake, full of thoughts he could not silence. He watched Huyen sleep in the dim light that filtered through the doorway. Her face was peaceful now. The worry lines that had creased her forehead earlier finally smoothed away. She looked younger when she slept, vulnerable in a way she never allowed herself to appear while awake. Her breathing was slow and steady, her hand tucked under her cheek like a child. Day's mind drifted back through time. He remembered the first time he had seen Huyen, huddled outside a broken shelter with Maya clinging to her. She had been so thin, her eyes huge in her gaunt face, her clothes hanging off her frame. She had looked at him with a mixture of hope and fear, as if she could not quite believe that anyone would stop to help. She had been broken then, crushed by a husband who abandoned her, a mother-in-law who cast her out, a world that seemed to have no place for a woman alone with a child. He had helped her because it was the right thing to do, because he could not walk past suffering without trying to ease it. But somewhere along the way, helping her had become loving her. He had watched her slowly come back to life. She had gained weight, her cheeks filling out, color returning to her skin. She had started to smile, tentatively at first, then more freely. She had learned to laugh again, to play with Maya, to hope for the future. And with each small victory, Day had fallen a little more in love with her strength, her resilience, her capacity to keep loving even after being hurt so badly. Now, lying here in this hospital bed, Day saw something he had not fully recognized before. Huyen was no longer the broken woman he had rescued. She had transformed into someone new, someone strong and capable, and fiercely loving. She had not just accepted his care passively. She had used it as a foundation to rebuild herself into a person who could stand on her own, who could make decisions, who could love actively rather than just receive love gratefully. The woman sleeping in that uncomfortable chair was not there out of obligation or gratitude. She was there because she had chosen to be, because she loved him as fully and completely as he loved her. The realization moved through Day like a wave. He had thought of himself as Huyen's protector, her provider, the strong one who held their little family together. And he had been those things. But he had also, he now understood, been holding on to control. He had needed to be needed, had found his purpose in being the one who gave while others received. Letting Huyen care for him, truly accepting her help, rather than just tolerating it, meant letting go of that identity. It meant trusting that their relationship could survive him being weak, him needing help, him not having all the answers. It meant believing that Huyen loved him not because he was strong, but simply because he was himself. Looking at her now, sleeping in that terrible chair because she refused to leave his side, Dee felt something shift deep in his chest. This was what partnership looked like. Not one person always strong and one always weak, but two people taking turns holding each other up. Huyen had grown strong enough to carry him now, and he loved her even more for it. He loved her courage in insisting on staying. He loved her tenderness in feeding him dinner. He loved her determination to be present, even when it was difficult. She was not just his companion anymore. She was truly his equal, his partner in every sense of the word. Dee watched Huyen sleep until his own eyes finally grew heavy. Just before he drifted off, he whispered into the darkness, so quietly that it would not wake her. "Thank you for loving me like this. Thank you for being strong when I could not be. Thank you for showing me what we can be together." She did not hear him, lost in her own dreams. But somehow, Dee felt that his words reached her anyway, traveling through the connection that bound them together, stronger now than ever before. Love is not always what we imagine it to be. We think of grand gestures and passionate declarations, but sometimes love is simpler than that. Sometimes love is sleeping in an uncomfortable chair because you refuse to leave someone's side. Sometimes love is feeding someone who cannot feed themselves, reading to them when they are too tired to read, being present when presence is all you have to offer. Huyen had learned this lesson from Dae, and now she taught it back to him. She showed him that accepting care is not weakness, but trust. She showed him that letting someone help you is a gift you give them, the gift of being needed, of having purpose, of expressing love through action. Dee's recovery would take time. His body needed rest and proper nutrition to rebuild what illness had destroyed. But as he lay in that hospital bed, with Huyen sleeping nearby, he knew that the hardest part was already over. Not the fever or the dengue or the physical weakness, but the lesson he had needed to learn about letting go and letting in, about being vulnerable, about trusting that love does not require him to always be strong. Huyen had stayed not because she had to, but because she wanted to. And in that choice, she had shown him the depth of her love more clearly than any words could have expressed. What happens next in their journey? Will Dee learn to accept help more gracefully as his recovery continues? How will their relationship change now that they have both seen each other at their most vulnerable? And what surprises might be waiting when Dae finally returns home? We invite you to join us for the next chapter of their story. Thank you so much for being part of this journey with Dae and Huyen. Your support means everything to us. Please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who might need to hear this message about love and partnership. Subscribe to Life Single channel so you will not miss what happens next. Leave us a comment telling us about a time someone cared for you when you needed it most, or a time you had the privilege of caring for someone you love. Until next time, remember that true love is not just about being strong for others, but also about letting others be strong for you. This is Dae and Huyen, reminding you that the greatest gift we can give each other is our presence. See you in the next episode.